I used cardboard pieces of pizza to illustrate the concept of equivalent fractions. With this resource, I showed that fractions with the same numerator did not necessarily correspond to the same amount, and fractions with different numerators and denominators could. Piagetian constructivism underlay my use of the resource. Per O'Donnell et al., in Piaget's theory, learners learn through the process of disequilibrium, where they encounter something that does not accord with their existing schemas. Schemas being how understandings of the world are organized mentally. In the face of this disequilibrium, learners can respond with assimilation, where they bring new information into their schema, accommodation, where they modify their schema to account for the new phenomenon, or avoidance, where learning does not happen. The hope here was that seeing that fractions with a common numerator could be unequal, or that seemingly different fractions could be equivalent, would lead to disequilibrium and then accommodation. Visual resources like this are more supported by Piaget's theory than Vygotsky's socioculturalism, as this latter theory sees learning as principally taking place through language. Students seemed generally engaged throughout the lesson. At each point, most of them were sitting up straight and facing towards me, indicating that my resource was generally effective at facilitating engagement. My classmates who were in the same SimLab session as me gave consistently positive feedback about my instructional resource, stating that it was effective due to being simple and easy to understand, as well as relatable, being something students were familiar with. I agree with their judgment that this resource was effective, as the class seemed to grasp the relevant concepts. Cognitive load theory predicts that there will be an advantage in using something simple and familiar as a resource. According to Pass et al., a person's working memory has limited capacity when dealing with novel information, so using a resource whose workings are difficult to follow, or which was based on an unfamiliar object, could overly burden the working memory, as space would be required to understand the resource, and thus learning would be inhibited. In light of this, I will aim to, where possible and practical, use instructional resources based on systems which would be familiar to students. Given that using a constructivist approach to instructional resources worked well, I will try doing so again in the future, but I will also keep in mind that it can be good to experiment and try different approaches.